The formative years of my life here at Napa High School was a foundation of my own inability to express my emotions and to keep my emotions inside and to build on my anger and not have an outlet for it. It had a lot to do with the mascot. When I look back at it today, I realized that there was a lot of hurt and trauma that was happening here. I felt as though I didn't have any power, as if I didn't have any value. There was an Indian mascot here that was represented as a full-blooded Indian from 500 years ago that had not been racially mixed through the process of colonialism. And a lot of the educators here believe that that's what American Indian was supposed to look like and was supposed to dress because of the prep rallies and events that were used here to demonstrate how they thought a Native American was supposed to behave. So for 4 years, I would come here 5 days a week and have my people represented on the walls with headdresses and feathers, and going to pep rallies where I saw students wearing face paint and would do war hoops and just make a mockery of my people, and it was all normalized. One of my teachers told the entire class that Native Americans were extinct. They had us fill in a census that they had to send to the state for funding of what race we were. And at that time, I was interested in not being multiracial and writing Native American on the form. And when I submitted my paperwork to an administrator, and she looked at me, and she looked at the paper, and she said, "You're not a Native American." And she erased it and put down white. And I was so hurt and felt so angry and violated that I took that form back from her, and I erased what she wrote, and I put down American Indian again, and I gave it back to her, and I said, "I am American Indian, and don't you dare change this." And that was an experience that I had, but I also know that many other Native Americans have had that experience too. I started resenting the authority figures here. I started having a really bad experience and feeling like I couldn't trust these people. I wasn't represented in the curriculum. I was just a token on their wall. During a school assembly, while sitting with my friends, I knew they were going to require us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I asked my friends to stay seated with me and protest. They agreed, but once the pledge started and we remained seated, a teacher approached us and told us we must stand up or go to the principal's office. My friends eventually stood up, but I remained seated. I was taken to the principal's office and sat across from him and his desk. Behind was the U.S. flag and pictures of founding presidents. He asked why I wouldn't stand. I shrugged my shoulders. He lectured me about all the sacrifices made for the founding of the United States. And as he went on talking about all of his views on patriotism and nationalism, I started to think of all the pictures of the presidents behind him as being the commanders-in-chief who orchestrated the genocide of indigenous people. And I imagined how many people died of my ancestors for that flag to be flown here today. It was a complete different perspective that I was having. We were talking about the sacrifices of people for the founding of this country, but we were not looking at it from the same perspective. And it was because of this learning environment, I believe, that caused many students, teachers, faculty, administration, to internalize these notions that we were not here and that they were going to live out our legacy for us, and that they were going to create our imagery for us. They were going to teach our history in however they saw fit.
And here come the Indians.
Throughout my schooling experience, I did not receive any positive support from my Native American identity development, and it caused me to become distrustful and cynical with school and authority. Unknowingly, I followed my ancestors' footsteps by writing on the walls and exercising my warrior mentality. Graffiti became my way of speaking myself visible in an act of defiance to the authority who used our unauthorized imagery as their mascot and school racial theme. I kept experiencing normalized invisibility in and out of school. I used to shoplift brand of malt liquor named Crazy Horse. Instead of the Indian on the bottle representing my sanctioned erasure, it symbolized my desire to reclaim my inner warrior and culture as an act of rebellion and masculinity. All of the risk I took to be seen eventually led to several arrests and juvenile detention. Approaching the age of 18, I was told by the juvenile court judge that my next encounter with law enforcement would land me in prison along with other delinquent members of my family. In the Scared Straight program, they had a mental health component, and there were inmates there who facilitated workshops. And by the last sessions, people were crying, talking about really horrific things that had happened to them. And I started to realize that I have a lot more opportunities than I thought. There's a lot of people who have so much trauma and so much hurt. In that process, I realized that, I could do it. I can make it out of here. I don't have to be in the same boat as these people. I don't have to go to prison. It was during this time at 18 when I was again approached by military recruiters to enlist. They tried to make me feel like I had a bright and secure future. I wasn't doing well in school and my career options seemed limited. And although several of my friends were enlisting, I requested more time to consider my options. When I discussed the possibility of joining the military with my family, they advised me to attend community college. When I enrolled in my first sociology course at Napa Valley College, I began to reconsider why my family had joined the military. The military and police force required little aptitude or education to enlist, yet provided generations of my family an opportunity for job security and the ability to raise children with greater prospects. But I also understood that the United States needed people like myself to implement similar policies that they did to take our land here, and that they were going to do similar things like that overseas. And so I had some trepidation about those things, and talking with my family and the possibility of going to college, I thought that was a good way for me to heal my family for all the trauma I put them through and all the hurt I put them through, and to take their advice and maybe make that my new pathway in life. I really fell in love with college because it was a lot different than high school. You can choose what courses you wanted. There were scholarships available for low-income students like myself. I started to have more awareness and more direction, and I was facilitating my own education in a way that wasn't happening in high school. And it really made me a fan of education, and I never reconsidered the military again after that. So while I was gone from Napa for years, working on my college education at the university, I came back here with a new lens. Although everything pretty much stayed the same, the way that I looked at things was very different. The plants around me, I started thinking about which plants were indigenous, which plants were invasive, which animals had been here before. And I started to think about the people and whose land we were on, and how all this time I had been living here in Napa thinking that Indians lived somewhere far away on a reservation and that Indians weren't here. When I came back, I started to realize that Indian country is not some far off place, that Indian country is all around us. This is Indian country. Napa County is Indian land. It always has been, and it always will be, and no matter how much it's been colonized or built on, or how many people of ours have been wiped out and decimated, how wiped out our culture is, the land is still ours. And so when I came back here, I realized that I have been growing up in Indian country my entire life. Wherever I go across North America, I'm in the land of some indigenous people. I need to acknowledge that these people are still alive and that it's my responsibility to go out there and seek them out and learn from them, because it's something that the colonization process doesn't want me to do. And it is something that if I were to do, I would be undermining the entire process of colonization. The police department, the justice department, the school system, all these institutions are colonial, and the real power and authority is with indigenous people, and they are the ones who are going to guide us. They're the ones that are going to help shape our future, and they are the ultimate leaders that I recognize, and that by changing my own worldview, I changed the way that a place that I grew up, what it represents to me, and that will not change.
There are 4 points I'd like to outline. First, federally unrecognized tribes and their citizens are legitimate and highly vulnerable. Second, federally unrecognized tribes are legitimate and worthy of systemic youth funding opportunities. Third, Native American cultural programs significantly reduce juvenile arrests. And finally, this funding must be open to urban areas, otherwise it would further marginalize our most vulnerable Native youth.
And no matter where I go, that will always be true, that indigenous people are here, and indigenous people need to be acknowledged, they need to be seen, and they need to be visibilized and to be acknowledged as the leaders and as the ultimate authority.
It takes 27 years for Saturn's return. It takes 500 years to remember and learn how it was in the day of our ancestors. Before the ships sailed out west to molest her. The Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria. All the boats we welcomed as soon as we see a metal men on horseback with hairy faces. It wasn't the first encounter of these races, cause the Vikings were here in circa 1050 AD.